Hello guys, so this is another video regarding Atlas 3I. It's just a bit of a follow-up because there's a few people mentioned something interesting the past few days, and that's that it's somehow connected to a big CME event that occurred. Now the one in particular is actually listed at spaceweatherlive.com, and if you go to their website here you can see latest CMEs, and this is the kind of table you're looking at, right? And if we just scroll down a bit, the one in question is this one here. It occurred on the 21st of October, so just a few days ago, and it occurred at 20 hours 24 minutes, right? And so this was a really big one, and you can see here this 2016 value here. If you just go back to the table, this is the maximum value to do with the velocity of the event, so it's the biggest one in the actual table here. So it was a very significant one, and I'll just show you the animation from Soho just so that we all know what we're talking about. So this is from Soho then. This is observing the sun, and you can see we've got the date stamp in the bottom left. It's 2025 October 21st, and it's just set at 11 hours, yeah? And I'm just going to manually cycle through it, and you'll see all the normal activity before the solar flare kicks off. And so just keep watching. That's it there. Now these actual intervals here go on in stages of like 12 minutes it seems. So let's just go back. Now we're at 2012, right? And if we just go one further interval, there. 2024, so that's the timestamp matching that table, and there you can see the eruption right there. Okay, so that's the first thing to note. And the second thing to note, you can see now we're on JPL. This is the app showing you the orbit of Atlas 3I, and again if you look at it here, bottom left hand corner, we're again 21st of October, and these are in daily intervals. So this is what you've got set up, right? This is the date of the CME event, yeah, when the coronal mass ejection went off the sun. Now here's the interesting connection people pointed out. If you look here, you can see Atlas 3I. I know it gives this code like C2025N1, but this is Atlas 3I, just scientific code if you want to put it that way. So you've got it there, you've got the sun and you've got the earth, and it's practically dead on in conjunction, right? You can see there's practically dead on conjunction going on here of the bodies in question at the time of this CME event. So that's the first thing that quite a few people have pointed out, but it does get more interesting. And the connection I want to draw your attention to here, and what makes it interesting, is this Venus connection. So the first thing to note here is, obviously we're still a few days away from this, right? As me recording this right now, it's the 25th of October, okay? We know Atlas 3I reaches perihelion very shortly, and that's on 29th of October, but then on the 3rd of November at 5:56, Atlas 3I reaches its closest approach to Venus, and this is this yellow line you can see here. And you can see in yellow, this is the distance between Atlas 3I and Venus at its closest approach in terms of astronomical units. 1 AU is the mean distance between the Earth and the Sun. Now I do have a straight line connection showing from Atlas 3I to the Earth at the same time, but that's the red line here. We're not interested in that though. I just want to draw your attention though to this value here. This is the value, the distance between Atlas 3I and Venus at its closest approach, but that's on the 3rd of November. What I was curious about is, what's the closest, or rather what is the actual distance between Atlas 3I and Venus at the precise time of that CME event? And so you can do a quick search, again using JPL's information here. You set the Atlas 3I as the target body and observer location as Venus, and again we've specified it to time steps of 1 minute for accuracy on the 21st of October. So if you do all that, this is what you get. In red you can see here on the left hand side, 21st of October 2024, precise time of the CME event. And if you look across here, this central big column here, 0.9949 0, 1. This here, this central column, is the distance between Atlas 3I and Venus. And you can see it's practically dead on 1 AU, okay? The mean distance between the Earth and the Sun. So this is what's the distance between Atlas 3I and Venus at the time of the CME event is very close to the mean distance between the Earth and the Sun. Now obviously the Earth has a slight elliptical orbit, so it fluctuates just slightly above and below 1 AU. So this got me all curious. Using the exact same timestamp, 21st of October, I wanted to know what was the distance between the Sun and the Earth. And again, you just change it up here. You put target body of the Sun, observer location geocentric, that's the centre of the Earth, and then you get this. Same timestamp, and you put a central column. There you can see it, 0.99537 AU. This is very, very close to the distance between Atlas 3I and Venus. So what I'm trying to say here, guys, at the same moment as this CME event, this coronal mass ejection occurs, it just so happens that the distance between Atlas 3I and Venus is almost a perfect match to the distance at the same time between the Sun and the Earth. But how close? What is the discrepancy? Well, if we look at it in terms of time, okay, we can simply note this value here, this 0.99537, and then go back to the Venus table, okay, and see what time we had that value present. And that's what you get here. The bottom line is as before, 2024, this is when the CME event occurred in red, and the distance in AU is, as you can see, 0.99490, distance between Atlas 3I and Venus. And if you go back, what is essentially 15 minutes, just 15 minutes, you get this value here, 0.99537. So basically, 15 minutes prior, the distance between Atlas 3I and Venus was almost a dead-on match between the distance between the Sun and the Earth. They were almost perfectly matched just 15 minutes previously. Okay, so that I thought was astounding, but there's another connection to make here, because I don't think it's necessarily 15 minutes. Remember when I was talking in the previous video about solar flares? And I said that with solar flares, you have the kind of start of the activity, when the activity, is the agitation on the Sun, solar storm type thing. It just starts to occur, and then it's the build-up, and then you have the sudden release, the burst of the solar flare. And usually you have a time delay between the start of the activity and maximum. And interestingly enough, as I've shown you here, the most powerful solar flare to have occurred this year is this X2.7, right? And there's actually a 15-minute difference between start of activity and when the flare was actually, burst out. It's different though. The one X2 one is only 5 minutes. The 1.9 is 13 minutes, and the 1.85 about 14 minutes. And I just thought this is interesting. Now, obviously, solar flares and CMEs are kind of like two different things. A solar flare is like a bright burst of light, like X-ray stuff, so it travels at the speed of light. A CME event is like an eruption of mass of material from the Sun, and it travels at far slower speeds. So light, for example, if you had a solar flare on the Sun, it would take about 8 minutes for light to travel to the Earth. A CME eruption of material, like magnetized material, protons, electrons, or whatever, it's a massive tonnage, if you will, a big burst of that. Debris kind of like flowing away from the Sun. That might take a couple of days or so to reach the Earth. So they are two different kinds of things, but they're triggered by the same kind of activity. It's like solar storms that reach a certain critical point. And sometimes you can have CME events closely related to solar flares and vice versa. The connections can be subtle though. And so this got me thinking about looking into the connection. Do we have some kind of solar flare activity which just precedes the CME event? So if we go a bit further here, this is what you get. If you look at the solar activity, as you can see the title of it here, again 21st of October. And you look here, you see where it says firstly 20 hours right here, and look at this here, this subtle little sudden blip occurring here. And so I decided to look at this a bit more carefully. And what we get firstly is this. See, it's in like green, still in the green phase. Class B 9.95. And these, the scale of it, if you look here, you get the C class, M class, and then X class, and then X10 class. These effectively are solar flare strengths, yeah? So those in that little table that I just showed you, a couple of slides ago, they would have big peaks going into, the X range. But here, it's a very subtle sort of solar activity that seems to just be related to, or just preceding the CME event that we're just talking about. So this one here, then you can see we've got this, firstly it's still in green in the colour here, B 9.95, and look, and you might have to go full screen on this one guys, but it says 20:04 universal time here, yeah? And the next one, you can see it's gone into C 1.15, and we're just trying to get the most accurate spike of this little activity. And this is 1 minute later, 20:05 UTC. And if we go just another 1 minute later, C 1.16, slightly more powerful, this is 20:06. And then if we go 1 minute again, it goes down, C 1.12. That's at 20:07 universal time. So the maximum little spike here we've got here, as accurate as we can model it, is 20:06 universal time. And this is the little solar activity that occurs, right? Just seemingly preceding the CME event. It's a subtle connection, but if we go to the table here, you can see what we've now got. The most exacting match between the distances between Atlas 3I and Venus and the Sun and the Earth occurs at this time here, 20:09 in blue. And the universal time there, if you just go across, that is the distance in terms of astronomical units that they both share. But just 3 minutes earlier is when we have this subtle solar activity, a little spike. And I'm just wondering, is that the causal link, if you will? My contention, as I've mentioned in the previous videos, is that Atlas 3I may well be stimulating the sun and stimulating the planets as a kind of probe. And so I'm thinking, did this Atlas 3I stimulate the sun at 20:06, cause some sort of initial though subtle solar activity, which inevitably then triggered, after a short delay, this massive CME event? And there's two ways you can look at it. Again, you can just look at the 15-minute difference, or you can look at the 3-minute difference. They're both impressive, but I find it uncanny that these relations exist. And again, I do think it speaks to some kind of causality, that there's a clear connection between Atlas 3I and massive activity going off on the sun's surface, in this case a CME event. I do think there's a causal relation here. And these corresponding distance matches, again, it's like I mentioned in the previous video, it's to do with harmonics and energetic resonance. So that's just what I wanted to draw attention to, guys. I thought it was very fascinating, and I do think there is a connection between that CME event that occurred here, 21st of October 2024, a few days ago, and Atlas 3I. I do think there's something there. So this brings us then to this final slide here, guys, and these are the events still to come. And we've got here 2 distance units in white here, and the 2 dates of interest. So I'm recording this October 25th, it's just going into October 26th midnight here. And so we're only a few days away from Atlas 3I reaching its closest approach to the Sun. And that is on the 29th of October, 11 hours 44 minutes as modelled, the accurate value we can get it. And we also have on November the 3rd, 5:56, the closest approach between Atlas 3I and Venus, okay? But what I'm interested in is at that same time of the closest approach between Atlas 3I and Venus, I'm interested in the distance at that moment separating the Earth from Atlas 3I, which is this distance here. You can see this 209.6 million miles. I showed you previously in the previous video, you have to look at that again, yeah, if you want to. Connections show that these values are both very significant, and that on either of these two dates here, we could have maybe CMEs, solar flares, or high, seismic activity, earthquakes occurring. So we'll just have to wait and see, guys. Something could happen, nothing could happen. But as things stand, I am convinced Atlas 3I is in some way causally connected. It is triggering solar flares, earthquakes, and CME events. The previous video I did give examples of that. Everything that I've said so far, though, has been an analysis of something that's already happened. What you're looking at on the screen here with these two dates is a forecast. It's speculative, but these are things that could happen on these particular dates. So we'll just have to wait and see if something does happen or nothing happens. So with that said, I'm just going to say go to my website, links in the description box, like, subscribe, share video and all that stuff. And if you go to my website, your homepage, scroll down to the bottom and you'll be able to see my books here. Do not be afraid to buy my books, okay guys? Go for it if you want to know more about these kinds of esoteric topics. And with that said, I'll leave it there.